Hi, it's Chris. I'm so glad you're here. This channel is all about building a better future and sharing stories, sharing information, sharing lessons learned on how we can do that together. Today, I want to dive into some of my experience of running for a state level office in a rural part of Connecticut. And over 2 election cycles, I ran twice. I really believe in putting in the work to go out and talk to people where they are, which often means door knocking. So literally, I, as a candidate, go and knock on your door and ask you, what do you think the biggest problem we need to solve is? And we try to have a discussion about that. I think it's a far more effective way of reaching out to voters at the smaller size campaigns, state rep, state senate, certainly any municipal office. It is far more effective than just blasting out ads, whether they're digital or on TV or on radio. And I knocked on about 9,000 doors over the course of 2 election cycles. And today I want to share with you the top 5 lessons that I learned from doing that. First, face-to-face interactions build trust. The amount of doors I knocked on, and I had to walk a long distance every single day, sometimes up to 12 miles a day because we have a lot of farming communities. So it wasn't a light task to take on, but putting in that effort and just showing up and walking along a dirt country road to go knock on someone's door. And when they say, wow, no one running for office has knocked on my door or tried to actually reach out and talk to me in over 2 decades or 20 years or sometimes 30 or 40 years, really just shows how few people actually feel like the politicians who are running for office put in the work to go talk to them. Just putting in the work itself builds a certain level of trust that can go beyond political party affiliation or even what you believe. And just putting in the effort for a lot of people will win them over to really support you moving forward. So if you're considered running for office, or if someone is showing up at your door, take the opportunity to have the conversations. The second part, when I ran for office, I'm a Democrat. I think most people on this channel already know that. I also ran as a third party candidate. I also am a veteran. And all these different groups offer some sort of training on how to do it, because it is an awkward thing to do unless you're a door-to-door salesperson in your own life. There are some skills of how this goes that you probably want to get exposed to before you try to do it for your first time. So if you are interested in this, go look for training or just go shadow people who already have done it. Unfortunately for me, the training part was very much, how do I get my message into their hand? You generally walk around with a card with information, and you're trying to leave your information, what we would call literature or shorthand lit, in their hand so they can look it over later on that day, or ideally even carry it into the election booth with them. I don't like the approach of just trying to do the elevator pitch as soon as you open your door. It just doesn't work. And I think sometimes people who are running for office forget that we are living in the loneliest period in our country's history. We can dive deep into that in another video, but people are lonely and people don't feel heard. So my approach and my tip of what I learned from door knocking, the second tip here, is really be there to listen. Introduce yourself, let them know why you're there. Don't play coy like that. So my typical approach would be knock, knock, you answer the door. Hi, I'm Chris Rivers. I'm running to represent you in Hartford, Connecticut. I'm part engineer, part combat veteran, and I really want to use those skills to actually go solve problems. And I would love to hear from you what you think the biggest problem our state needs to solve is. It's kind of an elevator pitch in and of its own right, but it sets up the door to allow them to actually think for a second. And you have to be willing to sit there and pause and just let silence fill the air for a minute or two. Now, will they come back and say, I can't think of anything? Absolutely. Many will. A lot of people don't breathe in and breathe out politics every day. It's okay. You can also include your contact information that you leave them and say, hey, if you do think of anything 5, 10 minutes later, a day, 2, week later, anytime before or after the election, I'm always here to talk. That is you opening up the conversation to make sure that the people in your community feel heard. Again, whether they agree or disagree with you, they feel like they had the opportunity to be heard. And that is so vital to campaigning now and moving forward. Third biggest thing I learned, local issues drive engagement. What do I mean by this? There is the old adage that all politics are local. There's a current vibe out in the political community that says all politics are national. And with how much people are ingesting social media day in and day out, or our national news day in and day out, I think there is truth to both of it. However, if I'm going to make the effort to show up and talk to someone face to face, it is going to be really hard for me to convince them that everything they're seeing on Fox News, if that's what they're watching, or everything they're seeing on social media is wrong. What is much easier is to connect over the fact that our high school here has a leaky roof and we have to figure out how to pay for it. We don't want to burden the taxpayers of our community with that. It can deal with the status of our athletic fields. It can deal with the road conditions. It can deal with a whole bunch of things that we all encounter every single day, but often don't think about. And that is how you can drive connection beyond what is going on nationally. Of course, sometimes what is going on nationally will certainly drive the conversation. And that leads me into my fourth point. Every door is different. Some doors you walk up to, and as you're walking up, you can't help but stereotype certain environments. Some people will have a massive Trump sign on their lawn, but then you knock on the door and realize that people are renting and have very different views than what their landlord had. Sometimes the stereotypes are spot on. And if someone has a Prius in their driveway, it might be an easier conversation for a Democrat versus having a big old pickup truck, but that also isn't always true. The interesting thing I learned was how much things going viral on social media can also change interactions. I'll give you one specific example. I was knocking on doors and two doors in a row, or two elderly gentlemen in a row, basically said, "Hey, I used to be Democrat. I will never vote for them as long as they're the party of censorship." It was the first time I heard that Democrats are the party of censorship. And it really bothered me as someone who is running to be a Democrat. So that night I went and researched what was really going on in the United States. And I have this bias that I really think people should not listen to what is being said, but should watch what's being done. And in that context, I went out and researched for the last 2 years at this point in 2024, there had been something like 60 to 80 laws passed that all infringe on people's First Amendment rights. Every single one of them were passed by Republican state legislatures. It didn't make sense. What the source of this was Vice President Harris, as she was running for president, made a comment about Section 230 of the Internet Law. The Internet Law was a law we passed in the 90s as a country to really help foster the creation of the internet. Section 230 basically says that internet-based companies have an even lower liability than limited liability corporations typically do. Basically, our social media platforms right now are fairly well immune from anything that happens on their platform. And that is not true of brick and mortar stores or other corporations. And that's what Vice President Harris was talking about. But how did it go viral? It went viral in the way that things do, which are misleading oftentimes. And in this case, it was Democrats of the party of censorship because Vice President Harris, one member of the Democratic Party, and sure, she was at the top of the ticket and it was a crazy election time, wanted to at least have a discussion about what should the liability of these social media companies actually be. Well, I went to a door the next day who brought that up, and I shared my research. And he just said, if you don't really know what's going on, you shouldn't be running for office, and just slammed the door in my face. So as much as face-to-face interactions do build trust, as much as people should be listened to, as much as local issues can drive engagement, sometimes what is going on online can overcome what you're going to be talking about at the doors, but you can't ignore it. The next door after that, I brought up the same set of facts, and that person really had to stop and think and was generally appreciative that I actually had information for him. All this to say, actually having right information matters. Every door conversation is going to be different. You can have a couple terrible conversations and then have the best conversation you ever had, or vice versa. You just have to keep going. And my fifth point is pretty simple. You don't have to know everything. If you're going to open yourself up and say, I'm here to listen to you, you have to be prepared to hear things that you don't know anything about. So follow-up is crucial and essential for building long-term trust. One door I knocked on here in Connecticut, we had an overhaul of how some electric utility bills were accounted for and different things that were showing up on bills because of what was passed in the state legislature. I was not an incumbent. I did not vote for that or vote against it. I did not really know what they were talking about. They showed me their electric bill. I said, that's interesting. Let me find out more for you and I'll get you an answer. Went home that night, did some research, talked to some elected officials who were part of actually building that. They informed me what it was. I did my own research, confirmed it, went back to them the next day and told them exactly what it was, why it's there, and what I think we could do differently. They were a different party than me, but the fact that I came back to them the next day and actually gave them an answer for something I did not know the day before got me more supporters. That isn't nearly as important as them feeling heard, them feeling like this is how politics is supposed to be. So the top 5 things I learned: 1, put in the effort. Go out and talk to folks. And you don't have to wait to be a political candidate to go talk to folks about politics. You also don't have to have all the answers. A lot of people just want to feel heard. Every conversation is going to be different, and that's okay. Be ready to say, I don't know right now, but I can go find out, and then follow up. If we all start doing this, whether you're running for office or not, if we all just start paying attention more to what other people are feeling and talking about and having them part of the conversation, that's how we can build communities that feel, once again, like communities, and not just be separated into team A or team B. You too can be part of the change. And that's my call to action for everyone on this channel. Take what you learn here and actually apply it in your everyday life. And if you're looking for different skills or different topics to dive deeper into, throw a comment below. I am happy to be guided by the people of this channel as we grow to cover the sorts of things that people find interesting and relevant. Thank you. If you haven't yet, please click like on this video, drop a comment below, and click that subscribe button. It'll help the YouTube algorithm make sure that these videos are getting into your feed. Thank you.